and I mean, and I'll stand corrected, I believe we're taking this as a whole with the recommendation of the Finance Committee. And I look at some of this, I know, I figure, well, we might be able to tweak this and tweak that. And we may have to do that if, in fact, we don't get 2/3 vote on different things to move forward. But tomorrow, even though you're Board of Selectmen, you're still a citizen. I think that you have a right to say something. Yes, Mike.
Okay. Two things. At last Tuesday night's Finance Committee meeting, I was initially reluctant to fund the transfer station for 6 months. Since that night, I do think that might be a compromise to go forward to meet the school department's needs and meet the town's needs at the same time. As Selectman Dutra said, we don't have closure on the final report for DEP, whether there should be an enterprise fund or whether there not should be an enterprise fund. And nor do we have any finality on what the proposal was submitted from Waste Zero. The fact of the matter is that we have a legal requirement to start an enterprise fund as of July 1st this year.
Yes.
That means that, but we won't. That means that during this current fiscal year, at the special, we're definitely going to have to take final action with respect to that enterprise fund. So it makes some sort of common sense to go that route for 6 months, because again, we're going to have, as a town meeting, have to make that vote. Right now, it's pending that we'll probably repeal the enterprise fund for good and have a general funded transfer station. But again, we want the savings and mechanisms go. So Selectman Dutra is a good compromise. Again, this is a reversal for me. I'll take full responsibility for it. But again, given the fact is that we're going to have to meet on the transfer station and take final action probably out of whatever funds we have in the fall, as we did last year, take some final action for the transfer station. It makes sense that we would fund the school department's needs tomorrow night rather than wait 6 months to supplement their budget, because as you know, the school department's budget is a budget that has to be set during the summer, because again, when school opens in the fall, that's their plan. The second thing, and I suggested in my packet here, is that they're $150,000 short, more or less, from the budget subcommittee. Given the fact that there's going to be a need for debt exclusion both on the school department capital and the highway department capital, we're going to have a vote. We're going to have to set a special election and incur the costs of that election. But I think it might, for discussion purposes, and I'll throw this out, although some folks will not be happy with this, since we have a free shot at the ballot, we might want to consider posing a limited override question on that ballot vote, because we got a debt exclusion vote that we have to go for, either on the highway equipment, the school equipment, or both. The fact of the matter here is that their delta is 150, and it would only, and I've checked this with the assessors, it will only mean a nickel on the tax rate. If we also throw in, and again on a very limited, but the Council on Aging has transportation needs, that if we made that limited the override to merely 160,000, it would still be a nickel on the tax rate. That's something I think prudently we have to explore, because we're going to have an election anyway. So I mean, the worst thing that could happen is that it would be defeated again. But there's also the fact that I believe the school department has made the case for the need for those funds, and I would also say that the Council on Aging has certainly made the case for the transportation fund. So I think between both of those two things are some sort of discussion where we could avoid any differences and come together as a town.
Right. I mean, tonight, I really want to get into say, you know, whether the Council on Aging deserves the $10,000, whether the school department deserves $150,000, or whether we can take some money out of. I just saw this lady walk in from health department, we could take it from his budget. Being he was the last person in. Just kidding. But no, but I mean,
We can't even
No.
have that discussion
No.
tonight. We have
That's right.
a recommended from the finance committee. By law, that's goes to town meeting.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
If we're gonna have these discussions, you know, the horse has left the barn at this point.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
No, it has.
Secondly, well, we can discuss the budget and we can put polls on it tomorrow night. But the budget that's gonna be recommended at the town meeting, the town meeting can change those recommendations, come from the finance committee. We can't change the amount that the finance committee has recommended this evening.
No, you can't, but you can always offer amendments to the finance committee and perhaps.
Let me finish, if I could, Michael,
But I mean,
Michael, let me finish,
Hang on,
and you're certainly welcome to
Yeah.
talk after me. In addition to that, Michael had suggested that we look at a bond for operating expenses for the school, okay? I think that goes down a totally different road. That's about the only option that's left that would still.
No, it's not a bond.
Right.
Well, basically, we're gonna do an override for that purpose, and we're not taking it
But
from
it's not a
taxation.
bond.
We're borrowing money to cover the
No,
cost.
no, we're not,
How-
we're
I'm not talking about
creating
the
additional
transfer station,
revenue.
Michael, I'm talking about the school.
No, I'm talking about the schools. Okay, one of the things down here that
You're gonna have to either do an override, we're gonna have to do something, because we don't have it in our taxation right now.
Right, but this is the difference here. Okay, what we're talking about is not a bond, okay? We're talking about revenue for the town. And we've had a revenue problem, and it's been exacerbated by the fact that we didn't pass the override last year. We knew that there were going to be cuts and effects from that lack of revenue. Now, where they've made the case that there's 150,000 or so that in funds that they don't have. So one of the options, and only the selectmen have that option, is that because only the selectmen can vote to place a question on the ballot here. And as I said before, more than likely, probably, you know, as certain as things in politics goes, is that because we're going to have that debt question, we're going to have to spend $6,000 to $7,000 on an election. Why not have another question? And again, I think that the value of this here is that this is not a large figure. This is a need figure. This isn't a wish list like, you know, and again, not a wish list, but when we came up with that override figure last year, it kept growing and growing and growing. This is after going through a hard scrubbing budget process, and you know have come down to, you know, 150,000.
This is not balancing the budget. And you're asking for more revenues to balance the budget. Translated, that's what you said.
As you know, I mean, that's budgeteering. It's a question of revenues. For example, I mean, again, I'm reading the local Standard Times that a local hotel person agreed to the hotel tax in New Bedford, but was opposed to it in Westport.
That's not true.
Well, again,
That's not true. Let me clarify that, because you've actually taken a business person here. In New Bedford, and I was at the meeting in New Bedford when that went down with the mayor some years ago, and he was just building the building, he asked to hold off on that, and he'd be willing to pay, he's paying the hotel tax as part of the bill. It's a 2% in addition, and he suggested if they could hold off for a couple of years. The mayor said yes, and they put in 1 year for 1%, the following year for 1%. When he came to Westport and he went and spoke at town meeting, if you check the record, he suggested that if he could hold off based on the economy right now, that he certainly would not fight it in the future, but he asked to be held off right now.
So
it would behoove the people in the town, the finance committee, the board of selectmen, to introduce that article if they wanted to do that this time. So
again, this is just to answer my question. So that's good, because again, if we enact this in this fiscal year, and the revenue, albeit won't trigger until January 1st,
right,
that's additional revenue in the fiscal 12 revenue stream that could perhaps help us.
That's right.
And there's a lot of issues that we could handle, but not tonight. Yes.
But to your point, Mr. Chairman, I think the discussion that we have at the present time is on the motion that has not been seconded. Oh, no, seconded. To support the Finance Committee budget as presented to us this evening.
That's right.
And the discussion is simply on that motion.
That's right.
And I raised the concerns I had relative to that motion with respect to the school department budget. I think that another matter which can't be taken up tonight because I think we need to have, what can be taken up at a later date in the event that the capital bond passes
Right.
at town meeting. We have the opportunity to put a Prop 2.5 override as a separate freestanding item, not tied to debt,
That's right.
not tied to the debt exclusion, for several items that has been suggested by the town administrator.
And the Board of Selectmen are the ones that put that on the ballot. I agree 100%.
And again, in closing, I certainly understand the roles and responsibilities of the Finance Committee, that this is the Finance Committee's budget. They're the only ones authorized to present the budget at the town meeting. It is the budget that's before the voters tomorrow night and perhaps afterwards, and that only changes to that budget can be made by amendments from the floor.
Right. And when it's all done, and when we come back here and there's any adjustment stuff, then it becomes the responsibility of the selectmen to make those adjustments.
Well, town meeting is gonna set the appropriation level. We can't adjust that. That's voted on, then we have to come up with something.
We gotta have to adjust the money somehow, some way within.
Well, it goes to, it's basically the same process that would be used in the meeting tomorrow night. We would enter the fiscal year with legally authorized appropriations. We'd have to hold a special town meeting in December. The town administrator or the Board of Selectmen can present suggestions, but then at that special, it would be the Finance Committee that would recommend the budget balancing plan on the town meeting floor, just as it was always done. I think that, when we're talking about what's the strategy is going to be if the people in there exercise their democratic rights is that if the budget is going to be changed by a significant amount of money, there's no way you can huddle up and talk about where we're going to come up with 100,000 or 200,000 in cuts, let's say, for an example. The better way, what I would suggest, is we enter the fiscal year with those legally authorized appropriations, go through a deliberate discussion and review of town budgets. And again, as we've done in the last couple of years out of necessities, reconvene at a special in the fall and balance the budget so we can set the tax rate.
Terry, I'm not going through all the
Yeah.
different
Okay,
departments,
as
just
far
you,
as
because you're,
the special town meeting, if you put an override question on the ballot, you have to have a special town meeting for that question. So it might be better to have both town meetings at once before December.
I'm just not getting, I'm not getting involved with all the other department heads. I just wanted to know, Terry, just about the budget right now.
You need a special to appropriate the money from the 2.5 override, but you don't need one beforehand.
Right.
Right.
Do you have any questions? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes in favor, so it'll be 3-2 that we go in the recommendation at this time, the lead hour for the, as so recommended by the Finance Committee.